The stars were dying. Not slowly, as they had for billions of years, but quickly. One day a star would shine bright in the sky, and the next day it would be gone. Not exploded, not collapsed into a black hole, but simply gone, as if it had never existed at all. Ambassador HFY stood on the observation deck of the human space station, watching Earth turn slowly below. The blue and green world looked so peaceful, so normal. It was hard to believe that this small planet might hold the galaxy's last hope. HFY was not like humans. The ambassador's body was tall and thin, with silver skin that reflected light like metal. 4 arms moved gracefully as HFY spoke to the humans gathered in the meeting room. The translator device made the alien words sound clear and urgent. The Devourers have taken 12 star systems in the past month, HFY said. Our best fleets cannot even slow them down. They eat reality itself. Ships, planets, stars. Everything just stops existing when they arrive. General Martinez, the human commander, leaned forward in his chair. His old face showed worry lines that seemed deeper today. Tell us about these Devourers. What are they exactly? We do not know, HFY admitted. They come from the void between galaxies. They are older than our oldest civilizations. Our scientists say they exist partly outside normal space and time. When they attack, our weapons pass through them like they are ghosts. But their weapons destroy everything they touch. Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's top scientist, asked the question everyone was thinking. Why come to us? Humans are still new to space. We have been part of your Galactic Confederation for less than 50 years. Our technology is behind yours. Our military is small. HFY's forearms spread wide in a gesture of desperation. Because normal military thinking has failed completely. Every logical strategy has been tried. Every advanced weapon has been useless. The Confederation's war computers calculate our defeat as certain within 6 months. The alien looked directly at General Martinez. Your species fights differently than others in the galaxy. We have studied your history. Humans do impossible things when facing certain death. You win battles you should lose. You survive when survival should be impossible. General Martinez exchanged glances with the other humans in the room. What exactly are you asking us to do? We need soldiers who understand hopeless battles, HFY said. Warriors who can fight when logic says fighting is pointless. The galaxy's greatest minds agree. If anyone can find a way to hurt the Devourers, it would be humans. The room fell silent. Outside the windows, Earth continued its peaceful rotation. Children played in cities below. Farmers worked their fields. Normal people lived normal lives, not knowing that everything might end soon. Dr. Chen spoke first. How many ships can you give us? What weapons? How much time do we have to prepare? Doctor, all the ships you want, HFY replied quickly. Every weapon in our arsenal. Every piece of technology we possess. But time is short. The Devourers move faster now. They seem to grow stronger with each system they consume. General Martinez stood up slowly. His joints creaked. He was getting old for a soldier. We'll need to talk to our leaders. This is bigger than any military decision. This affects all of humanity. Of course, HFY said. But please understand. The galaxy has no other hope. If humanity cannot find a way to fight these things, then everything ends. All life, all civilization, all dreams for the future. After the ambassador left, the humans sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Dr. Chen spoke. They think we're just really good fighters. They don't understand what makes humans special. General Martinez nodded slowly. They've never heard our old stories. They don't know about the warriors who never really died. Ah. Do you think it could work? Dr. Chen asked. Project Valhalla has been theoretical for so long. We've never tried to wake more than one at a time. The technology is ready, said Dr. Kim, the project's lead engineer. The quantum chambers are built. The consciousness matrices are stable. We just need permission to begin. General Martinez walked to the window and looked down at Earth. Somewhere down there, in hidden facilities, humanity's greatest secret waited. Not weapons or ships or advanced technology, but something the galaxy had forgotten was possible. The memories of heroes. The spirits of warriors who had faced impossible odds before. They asked for soldiers, General Martinez said quietly. They have no idea what soldiers really are. They think it's about training and equipment and tactics. They don't understand sacrifice, Dr. Chen added. They don't know what it means to fight for something bigger than yourself. Dr. Kim pulled up a holographic display showing genetic patterns and quantum signatures. The Spartans are ready. Viking berserkers. Samurai warriors. Knights and legionnaires, and gunfighters. Every legendary warrior humanity ever produced, preserved in quantum foam, and waiting for the call. The galaxy thinks humans are just stubborn fighters who refuse to surrender, General Martinez said with a small smile. They're about to learn what human legends actually look like. 3 days later, the Confederation received humanity's answer. Earth would send soldiers to fight the Devourers. But not the kind of soldiers the aliens expected. The humans spoke of awakening old debts and calling upon ancient oaths. They mentioned names that meant nothing to alien ears. Leonidas, Musashi, Joan of Arc, Alexander. Zexhai did not understand the strange excitement in human voices. The ambassador thought the humans were being poetic about their military units. How could Zexhai know that humanity was preparing to do something impossible? How could any alien understand that humans had learned to make their myths real? The call went out across Earth and her colonies. In hidden chambers deep underground and in secret stations floating in dark space, quantum machinery hummed to life. Systems that had waited decades for this moment began their work. The cosmos had asked for soldiers. Humanity was about to send them legends. Deep beneath the mountains of Colorado, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the most important moment in human history begin. The facility stretched for miles underground, filled with machines that most people would never understand. They looked like metal coffins connected to computers, but they were so much more. Quantum resonance is stable, announced Dr. Kim from his control station. Lights flashed across dozens of screens, showing patterns that looked like heartbeats and brainwaves. Beginning first awakening sequence. Chen walked slowly between the rows of quantum chambers. Each one held the preserved consciousness of a legendary warrior from human history. Not their bodies. Those had turned to dust long ago. But their minds, their spirits, their essential selves, had been captured using technology that mixed advanced science with something that felt like magic. Remember, Chen said to her team, these are not copies or simulations. These are the actual minds of history's greatest warriors, preserved in quantum foam and enhanced with modern knowledge. They will be confused when they wake up. Be respectful. The first chamber began to glow with soft blue light. Inside, energy patterns swirled and took shape. The form of a man appeared, tall, strong, wearing ancient Greek armor that seemed to be made of pure light. His eyes opened and looked directly at Dr. Chen. Where am I? The figure asked. His voice carried the authority of someone used to command. The last thing I remember was the pass at Thermopylae. The Persians had broken through our shields. Dr. Chen stepped forward carefully. King Leonidas. My name is Sarah Chen. You died at Thermopylae over 2,000 years ago. But we brought you back because humanity needs its greatest warriors. The Spartan king looked around the chamber with sharp eyes. His form flickered between solid matter and flowing energy. Brought me back? How? We learned to capture and preserve consciousness at the moment of death. Chen explained. Every human who ever lived with true heroic spirit has been saved in this way. You are not alone here. As if responding to her words, other chambers began to activate. A Japanese samurai materialized in the next chamber, Miyamoto Musashi, the greatest swordsman who ever lived. His hand went immediately to where his sword should be. Then he froze as he saw the strange place around him. In another chamber, a woman in medieval armor took shape. Joan of Arc looked around with wonder, not fear. Is this heaven? She asked. Not heaven, Chen said gently. Earth, Your world, but far in the future. Humanity has spread to the stars, but we face an enemy that threatens to destroy everything. More chambers activated. A Viking warrior materialized, his beard wild and his eyes burning with battle fury. An Apache warrior appeared, moving like a shadow even while standing still. A Roman centurion stood at attention, scanning for threats, but these were not ordinary resurrections. The awakened warriors were quantum beings now. Able to shift between energy and matter, they could interface directly with advanced technology while keeping their essential nature as legendary fighters. We understand this must be difficult, Dr. Kim said through the communication system. But the galaxy needs you. An enemy called the Devourers is destroying entire star systems. Normal weapons cannot hurt them. The Spartan king stepped out of his chamber. His armor clinked, but it also hummed with energy patterns. You woke us to fight another hopeless battle? Yes, Chen said simply. Leonidas smiled fiercely. Good. That is what Spartans do best. The Viking laughed loudly. Ragnarok comes at last. I have been waiting for the final battle, but Miyamoto Musashi was more thoughtful. Show me this enemy. I must understand what we face before I can fight it. Chen activated the holographic display system. Images of the Devourers appeared. Dark shapes that seemed to eat light itself. Moving through space like holes in reality, the warriors watched footage of galactic fleets being destroyed without firing a single shot. They exist partially outside our dimension, Chen explained. Traditional weapons pass through them, but they can affect our reality, consuming matter and energy. Joan of Arc studied the images carefully. They are creatures of despair, she said quietly. I can see it in the way they move. They feed on hopelessness. If normal weapons cannot hurt them, the Roman centurion said, then we must use abnormal weapons. Exactly, Chen said. You are not just warriors anymore. You are legends made real. In you, human myth and modern technology combine. You can do things that should be impossible. Leonidas held up his hand and watched it shift between solid flesh and flowing energy. Interesting. I can feel knowledge in my mind that was not there before. Star charts, weapon specifications, tactical data about alien species. We gave you everything you need to understand the modern world, Doctor, Kim explained. But we did not change who you are. You are still the same heroes who faced impossible odds and won through courage and determination. More chambers were activating across the facility. Alexander the Great appeared, immediately asking for reports from his generals. Knights from many nations materialized, their honor burning like visible fire. Pirates and revolutionaries and freedom fighters took shape, all united by one thing. They had all faced certain death for something greater than themselves. How many of us are there? Musashi asked. Thousands, Chen replied. Every culture, every era of human history. Warriors who understood that some things are worth more than survival. The Apache warrior spoke for the first time, his voice quiet but carrying far. The enemy thinks they understand warfare. They think destroying things makes them strong. They do not know about fighting for your people, your land, your spirit. They will learn, Joan of Arc said, her eyes bright with the same fire that had driven her to save France. They will learn what human legends can do when we fight together. In the command center above, General Martinez watched the awakening process through cameras. Alien observers from the Confederation stood nearby, their faces showing confusion and growing awe. What exactly are these things you are creating? Ambassador Zexhai asked. They appear to be energy beings, but they speak of human history. They are human history, General Martinez replied. The greatest warriors our species ever produced. Given new life through quantum consciousness transfer, they are myth made real. That should be impossible, another alien scientist said. General Martinez smiled grimly. Humans specialize in impossible things. You wanted soldiers who could fight hopeless battles. You're about to see what human legends look like when they have modern technology to work with. Down in the chambers, the awakened heroes were beginning to understand their new existence. They could feel the connections to advanced computers, the ability to interface with spacecraft and weapon systems, but more importantly, they could feel each other. A network of legendary warriors all connected by quantum entanglement. "We are more than the sum of our parts," Leonidas said, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Together, we become something new. Something that has never existed before." The first phase of humanity's response to the cosmic threat was complete. The legends were awake. The training grounds on Europa stretched across the frozen moon's surface under the protective dome of atmosphere generators. What happened there in the following weeks made even hardened human soldiers stop and stare in wonder. Miyamoto Musashi stood in the center of the practice area, holding a sword that seemed to be made of concentrated starlight. His opponent was not another warrior, but a holographic projection of a devourer, one of the dark entities that consumed star systems. The alien observers watched through protective barriers as Musashi moved. The legendary samurai's blade cut through the air in a pattern that hurt to look at directly. Reality bent around his sword strokes. When he completed his technique, the holographic devourer flickered and partially dissolved. "Impossible," whispered Korth, the Confederation's chief scientist. "He just damaged a computer projection with a physical sword. That violates several laws of physics. If you one of the Croter." Also, Dr. Chen smiled as she watched the readings on her instruments. Musashi isn't just swinging a sword. He's applying the principle of cutting through illusion to separate reality from unreality. The devourers exist partially outside normal spacetime, but his blade technique can reach into those dimensions. Across the training ground, Alexander the Great stood before a massive holographic star map showing the devourer advance. But he was not just looking at it, he was changing it. As he pointed to different systems and described tactical movements, the map responded. Supply lines appeared where none had existed before. Defensive positions materialized in empty space. The young Macedonian is creating battle strategies that work across multiple dimensions simultaneously, reported Admiral Vexrin of the Galactic Fleet. His plans require ships to be in several places at once. Our computers say it's impossible, but the mathematics somehow work. Alexander conquered most of the known world before he was 30, General Martinez replied. Give him a galaxy to work with and quantum-enhanced thinking, and he'll find a way to be everywhere at once. In another section of the training ground, Joan of Arc was doing something that made no scientific sense at all. She was inspiring alien warriors. Creatures from 12 different species stood around her, listening to her speak about courage and sacrifice. Her words were being translated by machines, but somehow the meaning carried far beyond language. A massive crouton warrior, a being that looked like a walking tank, knelt before the small human woman. I understand now, the alien said in a voice like grinding metal. Fighting is not just about strength. It is about fighting for something larger than yourself. She's changing their neural patterns, Doctor, Kim reported from his scanning station. Somehow, her presence is making them capable of types of courage their species has never shown before. It should be impossible, but their brain scans confirm it. In the weapons testing area, Apache warriors led by Geronimo were demonstrating scouting techniques that broke all known rules about distance and time. They would disappear into quantum static and reappear anywhere in the solar system, bringing back perfect intelligence about enemy movements. They're using quantum entanglement like traditional tracking, the alien weapons specialist reported. Following trails of distorted spacetime across vast distances. Our best scouts need ships and sensors. These humans just know where things are. But it was when the legends began working together that the real impossibilities started happening. Leonidas and his Spartans formed a defensive line that existed in 7 dimensions at once. Roman legions built fortifications out of pure mathematics. Viking berserkers charged across the vacuum of space without ships, their fury somehow providing protection against the cold and radiation. The breakthrough came when they faced their first real devourer. The creature had consumed the mining station at Titan and was moving toward Earth's outer colonies. Conventional fleet units fell back in panic as their weapons passed harmlessly through the dark entity. It looked like a hole in space shaped like a giant spider, but with too many legs and angles that hurt to look at. All ships, this is Admiral Reeves, came the desperate transmission. Conventional weapons have no effect. Repeat. We cannot damage the target. Requesting immediate assistance from Project Valhalla. The response came not from Earth, but from a single small ship that appeared between the Devourer and the fleeing human vessels. On the bridge stood figures that should not have been able to exist in the vacuum of space. Legendary warriors whose quantum forms allowed them to survive anywhere. Captain Horatio Nelson took the ship's helm, his ghostly hands interfacing directly with the navigation systems. Right then, lads. Time to show this creature how humans fight at sea, or in this case, the Void Sea. Beside him, Sun Tzu studied the Devourer's movement patterns, while Hannibal Barca planned an attack route that would come from 6 directions at once. Joan of Arc stood ready to inspire the ship's crew to impossible courage. Miyamoto Musashi prepared his reality-cutting techniques. The creature feeds on despair, Joan of Arc announced to everyone on board. But we carry hope. That is our weapon. The ship moved in ways that violated physics. Nelson sailed it through folded space like he was navigating ocean currents. The Devourer turned to face them, its many-angled form shifting as it prepared to consume another meal. Then Musashi struck. His sword technique reached across the vacuum and cut into the Devourer's partially real form. For the first time in recorded galactic history, one of the creatures screamed. The sound came not through air, but through quantum vibrations that every sensitive being in the solar system could feel. Impossible, Admiral Reeves whispered, as his sensors registered something unprecedented. Because it learned what human determination feels like, Sun Tzu replied calmly over the communication channel. And now it knows it can be hurt. The Devourer tried to retreat, but Hannibal's multi-dimensional attack plan was already in motion. Spartan warriors appeared from quantum foam and formed a battle line that blocked the creature's escape into higher dimensions. Roman legionnaires built containment fields out of pure willpower and tactical discipline. The battle lasted only minutes. But when it was over, the Devourer was gone. Not consumed or dissolved, but actually defeated. Destroyed by warriors who refused to accept that victory was impossible. The Galactic Confederation watched the sensor recordings in stunned silence. For the first time since the Devourer invasion began, one of the ancient entities had been killed. How? Ambassador Zexhai asked. How did they do what our greatest fleets could not do? General Martinez looked at the alien with tired but satisfied eyes. Because they're not just warriors. They're legends. And legends don't follow the rules that normal things follow. Dr. Chen added, the Devourers exist partially outside reality, but so do our awakened heroes now. They can fight on the same dimensional plane. More importantly, they carry something the Devourers cannot understand or defend against. Which is what? The ambassador asked. The human concept that some things are worth more than survival, Chen replied. The Devourers consume and destroy because that's all they know. Our legends fight for something greater than themselves. That's a force the universe has never seen before in this combination. Myth made real. Powered by sacrifice and determination. In the depths of space, the news spread quickly. Humanity's legends had won their first victory against the impossible. The galaxy began to hope that perhaps the end was not inevitable after all. But in the void between stars, the remaining Devourers felt their siblings' death and began to change their tactics. They were learning that these humans were unlike anything they had faced in their eons of existence. The real war was about to begin. The void between galaxies was not supposed to be a place where battles could be fought. It was empty space so vast and cold that even light took millions of years to cross it. But the Devourers had made it their fortress, and humanity's legends were about to prove that even the impossible could become a battlefield. Fleet Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship Valhalla, watching as reality twisted around them. They had followed the retreating Devourers into the deep void using navigation techniques that no galactic species had ever imagined. The ship moved not through normal space, but through the quantum foam that connected all legends to the human collective memory. Sensors show multiple Devourer signatures ahead, reported Commander Singh. At least 50 entities, maybe more. They're arranged in some kind of formation around what appears to be their main nest. "It's not a nest," said Sun Tzu, his quantum form interfacing directly with the ship's tactical computers. "It's a feeding ground. They bring consumed matter here to process it into pure entropy. This is where they transform reality into nothingness." Around the human flagship, an impossible fleet had assembled. Ships crewed by living humans worked alongside vessels piloted entirely by awakened legends. Viking longships sailed through vacuum, their dragon prows cutting through the fabric of space-time. Roman galleys rowed across emptiness using oars made of crystallized willpower. Modern frigates flew in formation with ancient war chariots that somehow moved faster than light. Alexander the Great commanded the left wing of the fleet from the bridge of a ship that existed in 12 dimensions simultaneously. Joan of Arc led the center, her presence inspiring courage in warriors who had never felt fear before meeting the Devourers. Leonidas anchored the right wing, his Spartans ready to hold the line, no matter the cost. "The enemy is moving," announced Miyamoto Musashi from his position at the tactical display. "They have never faced coordinated resistance before. They do not know how to respond to organized battle." In the void ahead, the Devourers began to emerge from their feeding ground. They were larger here than in normal space, swollen with consumed star systems and the despair of countless destroyed civilizations. Each entity looked like a wound in reality itself, darkness given shape and hunger. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," came the broadcast to the impossible fleet. "Remember what we learned in training. These creatures exist partially outside normal reality, but so do our legends now. Fight not just with weapons, but with the principles that made our heroes legendary." The battle began when the Devourers attacked with their reality-eating beams. Entire sections of normal space simply ceased to exist where the dark energy struck. But the human fleet was not entirely in normal space. They moved through quantum foam and legend space, existing wherever they needed to be. A devourer the size of a moon focused its attention on a squadron of modern fighters. The pilots should have been dissolved instantly. But they flew alongside the ghost of the Red Baron, whose legendary skill with aircraft had been enhanced with quantum flight capabilities. The fighters moved in patterns that physics said were impossible, but which worked because they were being flown by someone who had never accepted defeat in the air. "Target ahead," called Squadron Leader Williams. Engaging with reality torpedoes, the weapons were human innovation at its finest. Missiles that carried the concentrated essence of historical battles where impossible odds had been overcome. When they struck the Devourer, the creature experienced something it had never felt before: the memory of human victory against hopeless circumstances. The entity recoiled, its form flickering as it was forced to confront the concept that not all battles end in destruction. For a moment, it looked almost confused. On the Spartan battle line, Leonidas held a position that existed across 17 dimensions simultaneously. His warriors formed a phalanx that blocked Devourer advances not just through normal space, but through the quantum tunnels the creatures used to move between realities. "Hold the line," Leonidas commanded, his voice carrying across impossible distances. "These creatures know only how to consume. They do not know how to face those who choose to stand." The Devourers threw themselves at the Spartan position with the fury of entropy itself. Reality twisted and buckled as the dark entities tried to dissolve the defensive line. But the Spartans had faced impossible odds before, and death itself had not been able to break their will. "They're actually holding," reported the amazed Confederation observers from their safe distance. "The Spartan formation is stopping entities that consumed entire star systems." Meanwhile, Viking berserkers launched themselves directly at the largest Devourers without ships. Their quantum forms protected by pure battle fury. They swung axes made of crystallized legend that could cut through the boundary between existence and void. Each strike carved pieces away from the ancient entities, showing that even entropy could be wounded by sufficient determination. "For Valhalla!" roared Eric Bloodaxe, as he buried his weapon in a Devourer's central mass. "For the final battle we have waited for." But it was Joan of Arc who delivered the decisive blow, though not with any weapon. She stood at the center of the human formation and simply spoke. Her words carried through quantum entanglement to every human ship and every awakened legend. "We are here not to destroy," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos of battle, "but to preserve. We fight not for conquest, but for the right of all beings to continue existing, to continue growing, to continue hoping. Her words had an effect that no one had expected. The devourers began to slow their attacks. The creatures that fed on despair and entropy were being exposed to concentrated hope and determination. It was like poison to them, but not in a way that destroyed. Instead, it seemed to confuse them, to make them question their essential nature. Impossible readings, reported Dr. Kim from the flagship sensor station. The devourers are changing. Their energy signatures are shifting towards something we've never seen before. Alexander the Great seized the moment with tactical genius that spanned multiple dimensions. All wings converge on the central feeding ground. We're going to do something that will end this war. The human fleet moved as one entity, legends and living humans working in perfect coordination. They surrounded not just the devourer formation, but the feeding ground itself. The place where consumed realities were processed into nothingness. "What are we doing?" asked Admiral Chen. "We're going to give them a choice," Alexander replied, "something they've never had before." At his signal, every awakened legend in the fleet began to project their essential nature directly into the feeding ground. Not as weapons, but as examples. The devourers were suddenly surrounded by the concentrated essence of heroism. The willingness to sacrifice for others. The determination to protect the weak. The choice to create rather than destroy. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. The ancient entities stopped their attacks entirely. For the first time in their existence, spanning eons, the devourers experienced something other than hunger and entropy. They felt what it was like to fight for something greater than survival. The largest devourer, an entity that had consumed 100 galaxies, began to speak. Its voice came not through sound, but through quantum vibrations that touched every mind present. "What is this?" it asked. "This feeling we do not understand. This concept that makes us question our purpose." Joan of Arc answered, her words gentle but firm. "It is hope. It is the choice to build instead of destroy. It is what we call heroism. We have existed only to consume," the devourer said. "It is our nature, our purpose." "Nature can change," said Miyamoto Musashi. "Purpose can be chosen anew. Even the greatest warrior can learn to protect instead of destroy." Around the feeding ground, reality began to shift in ways that defied all understanding. The consumed matter that the devourers had been processing into entropy started to reform. Stars began to shine again. Planets took shape from quantum foam. The devourers were not just stopping their destruction. They were learning to create. "They're reversing the consumption process," Dr. Kim reported in amazement. "The destroyed star systems are being restored, not copied or simulated, actually brought back from entropy." The battle was over. But victory had come in a way that no one had expected. The devourers had not been defeated. They had been transformed, exposed to the concentrated essence of human heroism. They had learned that there was more to existence than consumption and destruction. "We understand now," the largest entity said. "We will return to the deep void to consider this new knowledge. Perhaps we can learn to create as well as consume." As the devourers retreated deeper into the void between galaxies, they left behind something unprecedented. Restored star systems, and a galaxy that had learned what human legends could accomplish when given the chance to show what heroism really meant. The impossible war was over, but its effects were just beginning. 6 months after the Battle of the Void, Ambassador ZXHY stood once again on the observation deck of the human space station. But everything had changed. Earth below looked the same, but the galaxy around it had been transformed in ways that no one could have imagined. "The restored Altair system is showing impossible readings," ZXHY reported to the Galactic Confederation Council. "Not only have the devourers brought back everything they consumed, but they have improved upon it. The planets are more fertile, the star burns more efficiently, and there are new forms of life that seem to exist in harmony with quantum energy." Dr. Sarah Chen joined the ambassador at the viewing window. She looked older now, but her eyes held a satisfaction that came from seeing the impossible become reality. The Devourers learned more than just creation, she explained. They learned imagination. They're not just reversing their destruction. They're using their power to make things better than they were before. Across the galaxy, the changes were everywhere. The awakened legends had not returned to their quantum chambers. Instead, they had chosen to remain active, spreading throughout Confederation space as teachers, protectors, and guides. Wherever they went, they brought something the galaxy had never truly understood. The concept that heroism was not about power, but about choice. On the military academy world of Nexus Prime, alien cadets trained under the watchful eyes of history's greatest warriors. A young Cruton officer practiced sword techniques with Miyamoto Musashi, learning that true strength came from understanding your opponent rather than overpowering them. Delicate crystal beings from the Sirius system learned tactical planning from Alexander the Great, discovering that the best strategies turned weaknesses into advantages. I never understood why humans fought so fiercely, said Cadet Threx, a insect-like being from the Outer Rim. My species believes in logical surrender when victory is impossible. But Leonidas has taught me that some things are worth more than victory or defeat. The Spartan king nodded approvingly. Victory is not the goal, young warrior. The goal is to stand for what matters, regardless of the outcome. Sometimes the greatest victory comes from choosing to fight when fighting seems pointless. In the diplomatic centers of the galaxy, Joan of Arc had begun teaching negotiation techniques that produced results no one had thought possible. Her methods seemed simple: appeal to the best nature of all parties involved. But somehow they worked even on species that claimed to have no emotional responses. She convinced the Hive Queen of Andromax to release all slave species, reported Confederation mediator Yultar in amazement. The Hive has kept slaves for 10,000 years. The Queen said that Joan made her understand that true strength comes from those who choose to follow, not those who are forced to serve. But perhaps the most significant change was happening on Earth itself. The planet had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a world where legend and reality coexisted. The awakened heroes had established academies, not just for military training, but for teaching the principles that had made them legendary. General Martinez, now in his 80s, walked slowly through the halls of the Hero Academy in Geneva. Students from dozens of species studied together, learning not just tactics and strategy, but the deeper concepts of honor, sacrifice, and fighting for something greater than oneself. The galaxy used to think of war as a logical process, Martinez told a group of visiting Confederation leaders. Resources against resources, technology against technology. They never understood that the most important battles are fought in the heart and spirit. In one classroom, Roman centurions taught engineering and logistics, showing alien students how to build, not just for efficiency, but for permanence and beauty. In another, Viking explorers shared navigation techniques that combined ancient intuition with quantum mathematics. Apache scouts demonstrated tracking methods that worked across interstellar distances. What we have learned, said Captain Yexnal of the Confederation fleet, is that humans did not become great warriors because they were strong or clever. They became great because they chose to be great. They chose to fight for others, even when it cost them everything. The awakened legends had also brought unexpected gifts to the galaxy. Poets and bards from human history had begun teaching alien species about story and song, showing them how narrative could shape reality as surely as any technology. Artists and philosophers shared concepts of beauty and meaning that transformed how entire civilizations saw themselves. But the most profound change was happening in the deep void between galaxies. The Devourers had not simply disappeared. Reports from long-range scouts spoke of impossible sights. New galaxies being born from pure creative energy. Stars arranged in patterns that served no logical purpose except beauty, worlds crafted not for resources, but for the joy of creation itself. They have learned to dream, Dr. Chen said during a meeting of the Galaxy Council. The Devourers spent eons consuming reality because they had never imagined that anything else was possible. Human legends showed them that choice exists, that purpose can be chosen rather than simply accepted. The first formal contact with the transformed Devourers came through an unexpected messenger. The entity that had once been the largest consumer of galaxies appeared at the edge of human space, but its form had changed completely. Instead of a wound in reality, it now looked like a galaxy-sized flower made of living starlight. "We have come to understand gratitude," the entity said, its voice now carrying harmonics of joy instead of hunger. "The legends you awakened showed us that existence has purposes beyond consumption. We wish to learn more." The entity had brought gifts, not treasure or technology, but entire star systems designed as art projects. Worlds where the physics worked differently to create impossible beauty, stars that sang in harmonious patterns, space itself arranged into sculptures visible from galactic distances. "We offer to teach as we have been taught," the entity continued. "Let us show other species what we have learned about transformation and choice." Thus began the greatest educational exchange in galactic history. The Devourers, now calling themselves the Builders, established academies in the void between galaxies. They taught concepts that no living being had ever imagined: how to reshape reality through will and vision, how to transform destruction into creation, how to dream on cosmic scales. Human legends served as ambassadors between the living galaxy and the transformed entities, translating concepts between mortal understanding and cosmic consciousness. Alexander the Great developed strategies for coordinating projects across multiple galaxies. Sun Tzu wrote treatises on how to transform conflict into cooperation on universal scales. "We have become something new," Joan of Arc observed during a conference that included representatives from 1,000 species and several transformed devourers. Not just humans, not just aliens, not just former destroyers, but a community united by the choice to create rather than consume. The galaxy had learned the truth that humanity's legends had always known: that the greatest battles were not fought for conquest or survival, but for the right to continue growing, continue creating, continue becoming something more than what you were before. On Earth, children played games inspired by the awakened legends, but the stories they told were not of war and destruction. They were stories of heroes who chose to build instead of tear down, who protected instead of conquered, who inspired instead of intimidated. General Martinez, now retired, sat in his garden and watched the sunset over a world that had become the most important planet in galactic history, not because of its resources or strategic location, but because it was the place where legends came to life and showed the universe what heroism really meant. "We asked for soldiers," he murmured, remembering Ambassador Zexhi's desperate plea so long ago. "But we gave them something better. We gave them heroes." In the deep void, the Builders continued their work of cosmic creation, guided by lessons learned from human legends. They built not cities or ships, but entire realities designed around the principle that existence itself was a choice to be celebrated. And throughout the galaxy, on worlds beyond counting, young beings of every species looked up at the stars and dreamed of becoming legends themselves, not through conquest or destruction, but through the simple choice to fight for something greater than themselves. The cosmos had asked for soldiers, humanity had sent legends, and in return, the universe had learned to dream.